want to read you something. It's a message that came into my inbox not too long ago, and I sat with it until I responded. And I think it might be one of the most honest things a homeschool mom has ever said to me. And I've been doing this work for a while now, so that is saying something. So here it is. Her name is not Persephone. It is a beautiful name. I use the name Persephone in this description. I would love to hear you say, Persephone. You don't need permission to allow some of your kids to attend public school. You don't have to let old hurts and fears deprive them and yourself of peace. This time is what you need to regroup. You can work on your mental health. It's okay, at least for now, to consider other ways getting their education. I need permission. Would you please give me permission? Even though I don't need that from you, I feel like I need to hear it from you. I read that a few times, not because I was trying to figure out what to say to her. She'd already written my response for me. She laid it out right there in her own words, what she needed to do, why she needed to do it, how it would help her family. She knew it. Right in the middle of her message, that one little phrase tucked in there, even though I don't need that from you, that's the one that I perseverated on in my mind. She knew. She already knew. She didn't need my permission. She had the authority, the wisdom, and every right to make that decision for her family. And yet she was still asking, still waiting from someone, still not quite able to move until someone outside of her said the words out loud. And I want to ask you something before we go any further today. Have you been her? Have you ever known, really known what you needed to do, what was right for your family, what your gut was clearly telling you, and still found yourself refreshing the Facebook group thread, hoping someone would validate the thing you'd already believed? If you have, this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about one of the most quietly fatiguing patterns that I see in homeschool moms. Constant reaching outside of ourselves for permission we already have. And more importantly, we're talking about what it takes to actually stop doing that. Welcome to the Confident Homeschool Mom Podcast, a space for moms who look capable on the outside, but feel scattered, depleted, or unsure of themselves inside. I'm Teresa Wiedrich, graduated homeschool mom, certified life coach, and author of the book Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. I began homeschooling for freedom, but by year 3, I was buried under my mental load, my perfectionistic scripts, and an invisible pressure to get it all right. Everything shifted when I stopped trying to fix my homeschool from the outside and started paying attention to what was happening on the inside. Here's what I know after years of doing this homeschool mom coaching work. Most homeschool support focuses on the outside, the outward, the curriculum, the schedules, the methods. My work focuses inward, on the woman running it all. Because most homeschool overwhelm has almost nothing to do with the curriculum. It has everything to do with the pressure, perfectionism, and old scripts we carry inside. You are the most important curriculum in your homeschool, and when you tend to yourself, everything can shift. Let's get into today's episode. So let's just get clear on what this conversation is about today, because I think it helps to know you're not alone in this if you have ever entertained the notion about putting your kids into public school. Persephone's situation was about public school, about whether it was okay, really okay, to enroll some of her kids while she took time to care for her mental health and, as she said, regroup. That was her specific decision, her crossroads. But the crossroads might look different for every one of us. Maybe for you, it was switching curriculum halfway through the year when what you were using clearly wasn't working, but you'd already paid for it. So you told yourself, or your mother-in-law, or someone else who cares, and you posted about it in your homeschool group, and somehow all of that made it feel like you needed everyone else's blessing before you could just make the decision. Maybe it was dropping a subject. You could see your child was miserable. You could see the approach wasn't clicking with them. But you were worried. What if they fall behind? What if they miss something? What if there's a gap? What if I'm wrong in making this choice? Maybe it was saying no to a social scenario. Maybe it's a co-op or some other extracurricular that everyone seems to love, but that was adding 3 hours of driving and activity to your week, and it only left you more depleted. Some of the kids love it, but most of the kids are agitated and on edge when you leave that space. Maybe it was admitting to yourself that you are burned out, that you need help, that something has got to change. The details are always different. Many different women, many different scenarios, but the pattern underneath is the same. You know what you need to do. You can say it out loud. You can almost write a book. You definitely can respond to somebody else's panicked Facebook post. And yet you don't move when you know you need to make a decision or be clear on something. You wait, you seek a little more, you ask a little more, you look outside yourself for someone to say, yeah, it's okay. You have my blessing, go ahead. I don't think it's bad that you're doing that or that I do that or have done that. I don't think it's a weakness. I think it's evidence that you're bad at making decisions, or maybe that this particular decision is really daunting and it just feels too consequential. Maybe it also points, though, to you lacking confidence in some fundamental way, like a learned response. Oh dear, where would you have learned to think in a group? But I can say this learned response, the uncertainty that you're accustomed to feeling, that can be unlearned. Ask me how I know, both in my life and other women's lives. I call this the Confident Homeschool Mom Podcast for a reason, because that's what I do. I said it one time on Instagram and got a big response that what I'm really offering you here is confidence. So first we need to understand where it came from and why homeschooling of all things tends to make it so much louder. Most of us grew up inside a school system that was, at its core, built on external validation. Just think about it. From the time you're really little, you were being evaluated. I remember it. Kindergarten. Somebody gave me a big fat red pencil. You know, those ones that are given to you when you haven't really learned to write or print before. I remember her saying, everyone, just draw anything that you care about on this paper. I had not been given a big fat red pencil before. In fact, I wasn't read to as a little girl. So when I sat down with that big fat red pencil, all I could think was, I have no idea what I'm supposed to write here or draw here. I looked over at the little girl next to me. She clearly knew what to draw. It was a beautiful teddy bear. Me? I truly, for the life of me, could not imagine what I was going to draw. I lived in the province of Alberta, and if you live there, you know there were, maybe still are, AGT poles. They're electrical poles. They look an awful lot like the cross. That's all, a cross. And that is what I put on a paper, a cross. Needless to say, the kindergarten teacher, not impressed. And why would she be? And yet, I didn't know what I was doing. I definitely felt evaluated. But all the way through school, we are graded and ranked, told whether we're on track or behind, whether we're meeting expectations or falling short. Even in this day and age, there are those things. I know because I've watched my kids, the ones that have gone to high school or in college, experience some of that. And also I remember it, and I'm sure you do too. I remember being in grade 3 when we were learning times tables. And if you were in the first row, you had memorized all the times tables. If you were in the second row, you memorized some of them. In the third row, you memorized almost none of them. I don't remember where I was. Actually, I just know I wasn't in the first row. So remember that there was a kid in first row who was right beside the windows. And when Mrs. Sutherland left the class, and yes, that was really her name. Hello, Mrs. Sutherland, if you're out there somewhere. Mrs. Sutherland left the class, and this kid opened the window and shot out of his first line because he wanted to go to the playground. He was bored. He was well beyond the first row. But all I remember is that I was not in the first row. Do you remember getting gold stars for the right answers? You got marked down for the wrong ones. big red slashes. We learn to read the room. What does the teacher want? To this day, I still hear my post-secondary learning kids tell me that they need to read the teacher or the professor and try to get clear on what they want so they can orient their essay or the lab report or the you fill in the blank so that it orients towards what they want. What? That's the point of an education? If you are a student oriented to listening outside of you, paying attention, and actually checking off all the boxes or expectations of the teacher, then you are going to do quite well as you move through K to 12. A good student, a conscientious person, someone who cared about doing things well. You got very, very good at that game. You learned to meet other people's expectations. You learned to navigate the external systems or the attempts at getting approval. You earned it. You got it. You achieved. You were successful. What most of us were never explicitly taught was how to set our own standards. Set our own standards? No, this is not a democratic school. I don't know if you've heard about democratic schools. Sounds super cool. But these ones, the ones that I attended and the ones that many of you attended, weren't democratic schools. We didn't decide what we learned. We didn't decide how we'd be graded or if we were graded, if there was a rubric or how we would set the rubric. None of that. We didn't evaluate our own choices against our own values. We didn't trust our inner knowing that said, yeah, this is right for us, even if it doesn't look like what everyone else is doing. That skill is what researchers and psychologists call self-leadership. And for many of us, it's underdeveloped. Not because it would have to be. It's in the raw. It still exists within you. But because no one ever asked us to practice self-leadership. Charles Manns is a leadership researcher who pioneered this concept back in the 1980s when I was going to kindergarten all the way to grade, 3? He describes self-leadership simply as influencing ourselves, creating the self-motivation and self-direction we need to accomplish what we want to accomplish. It's an inside job. It begins with us, not with the approval of someone outside of us. But then we chose homeschooling, which is, if we're honest, the opposite of following that path. There is no rubric. Well, at least the way I did it. I know every once in a while I come across some state or country where, yeah, there's definitely a rubric. But oftentimes there is no rubric. There's no standardized timeline that tells you whether you're on track. Maybe you need to complete 180 instructional days, but they're not telling you how to fill in every single day. And where I lived, the expectation was that I deliver an academic program to my children. That is all, folks. And I know some of you have that freedom as well. I didn't take that freedom in the first little while, but I did indeed have that freedom. When we homeschool, there's no standardized timeline that tells you whether you're on track. There's no teacher handing back your paper with a grade on it. There is just you, your kids, your instincts, your values, and thousands of decisions that need to be made between breakfast and bedtime. I come from the homeschool era that was not the pioneer homeschool era. Have you heard that phrase, pioneer homeschool era? Well, that's the one where it literally was like so off-grid, so unusual that everyone hid inside their home with the blinds shuttered. They were the ones advocating for the laws to change in their state or province or country. Still, compared to the masses, homeschooling kind of asks you to be a pioneer, to set your own standards, to create structure in your own way that resonates with your own judgment, sometimes in the face of criticism or mild skepticism or even harsh skepticism, sometimes just from well-meaning concern from people who love you and your kids, but people that definitely don't get what you're doing. Is it any wonder that we feel off balance? Is it any wonder that we reach for someone else's authority when we're feeling uncertain? Add to that the emotional weight that comes with teaching your own kids, the fear of failing them, because that is a mother thing. It's not just a homeschool mother thing. The profound sense of responsibility, the isolation that can come with this lifestyle if we are not proactively addressing it, the comments from relatives who make you feel like you just are not doing enough, the moments of doubt that creep in after all the kids are finally in a quiet space doing their projects, and you're like, really? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? I think they're having too much fun in their room, learning how to put together their Lego builds or painting quietly in the craft room. Or maybe you question yourself when the kid squabbling and the bickering just won't stop. Or you have a kiddo who says, Mom, this is not working for me. I do not understand why I'm sentence diagramming. Tell me the reason. And to be fair, between her and me, I don't think there's a reason. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to call it out like I see it as a writer, not feeling the sentence diagramming thing. In any of those scenarios, though, they might make you question your choices. So we look outside of ourselves for a reassurance. Makes sense. Of course we do. But here's the problem with that. Every single time we seek an external permission for making choices or making our decisions, every time we outsource our authority to someone who does not know our children, does not have our children, is not us, doesn't understand our context or our values, we teach ourselves something. We're reinforcing a belief within ourselves. We're reinforcing the idea that someone else knows better than we do. We chip away little by little at our own self-trust. Oh, by the way, our kids are watching that. Plenty of times, women, sometimes men, ask me about how to do this homeschool thing. And when they're stuck on a decision, their instinct, understandably, is I just need more information. I need to research more stuff. I need to read more about learning, or I need to find the right expert who can tell me exactly what to do. And sometimes, yes, information is genuinely what's needed. No question, in the first couple of years before you homeschool, or at least in the first while before you homeschool, you're going to want to gather a lot of information. Makes complete sense. You do it in every single area of your life when you're entering in to a new phase of life, and you should. You should learn a lot about a lot of things. Sometimes you really don't have what you need to decide well, and you're just gathering more input so you know what the right move is. But more often than not, my experience, the information is already there. You already know your child. You already understand your family. You already have a sense of what's working and what won't. You don't need more information. You need permission to act on the information you'll already have. And though Persephone herself is an Enneagram Type 5, and if you know Enneagram Type 5 moms, you love to do your research, bring it. The world needs research. And also, at some point, you just got to say, it's done. It is finished. There is a completely different problem available to me by the time I finally decide on that other problem, right? But it's not just Enneagram Type 5 moms that are challenged with deep diving or doing research. All of us want reassurance. There is an author that I have included on my Homeschool Mama reading list who is Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, a psychologist, and author of what is inarguably the most influential book in my life, Man's Search for Meaning. Read it at age 16, had a huge impact on me. And though I don't remember this quote at this time, it was actually this concept that stuck with me, stayed with me way back when. And you probably have heard it too. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That line is so meaningful in this homeschool mom life, because so much of what keeps us stuck is happening in the space between the moment we recognize what we need to do and the moment we actually do it. Often, in this scenario today, fear moves in. Some of the old scripts that we have been carrying for a long time are activated by our uncertainty, or maybe it's an inner critic. Maybe that inner critic is saying, here's all the reasons why you might be wrong, why you should wait, why someone else's judgment is better than our own, or safer, or more reasonable. Self-leadership is what we can practice in that space. It's learning to notice what's happening there and choosing to act from our own values, our own inner wisdom, instead of from fear or the need for someone else's approval. And Brené Brown adds another layer here. She says that you can't get to courage without first sitting with vulnerability. We can't lead our kids to places we haven't been to ourselves. I can't lead you to somewhere without me having experienced it too. We cannot model self-trust for them if we are constantly showing them that we don't trust our own judgment. That's the heart of it. That's why this work matters so much. It's not just for you. It's not just for your peace of mind, although it'll definitely benefit you there, but it's for what you're actively teaching your kids about how a person figures out their own life. So I want to stay with Persephone's message for a moment longer because there's something in it that I think is important to notice. She didn't write to me confused. She was not asking me to help her think through the pros and cons, although she could have because she was with me in coaching. She'd already done that work. What she was carrying was not a lack of clarity. It was the weight of not yet trusting her own clarity. I see that all the time. Women who are genuinely wise about their kids, their families, their own limits, or even their capacities, who have done the thinking. They know who they are, they know what they need, but they're still living with a low hum of anxiety under the decision because they haven't yet fully claimed their own authority in their lives. That's what shifts when you start doing this inner work. And girlfriend, I wish you could have met me 30 years ago. And actually, if you have, please say hello. Don't just listen, actually say hi. This is real work that I have done in my life, and I continue to dig into and will likely forever. It's not that decisions get easier in life, that they require less thought perhaps, or less research. No, if you've been homeschooling for a long time, and I'm just using the homeschool concept because that's our shared conversation here, but it could have to do with how you're choosing to be in marriage, choosing to relate to your partner. It could be about how you choose to spend money. It could be how you choose to relate or engage with certain people that you love or certain people that drive you up the wall. It could mean many, many different things, but let's just go with the homeschool thing because that's why we're both here. When you move into the homeschool high school space, there's a re-upping, a massive deep dive into research once again. Can I hear an amen from those that are graduated or have much older kids? In high school, we feel compelled to gather all the information before we move into high school. I also know that women are more uncertain of themselves when they move into high school, or if they're doing a real off-grid, unschool, self-directed education in high school. Are they going to be equipped for college? Decisions don't get easier, but they do require less thought when you're practiced in making decisions. It's that they stop feeling like you're asking everybody, am I a good mother if I'm making this choice? We stop carrying the weight of everyone else's opinions. We know they have different opinions, and also I know mine. You stop waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, relitigating a choice that you already made. Although you may still be waking up at 3 in the morning because you're perimenopausal, but I digress. You start to notice the difference between fear or anxiety telling you that something's wrong and the inner knowing telling you something is worth paying attention to. Those two things can feel like they're identical if you're in the thick or the early stages of making choices for yourself, but they're not. When you've done enough of this work, you can begin to see them apart. You start to extend yourself the same generous interpretation that you'd give a friend. If Persephone having coffee with you and the kids are playing outside, and she told you everything she told me, you would not have made her prove her case. Girlfriend, just tell me where you are in your mental health care journey. I want to hear first so I can tell you whether or not I think you are anxious enough, depressed enough, or stressed enough to put the kids back into school. Oh my goodness. You wouldn't do that. You would have looked her in the eye and said, okay. That instinct toward trust, of course you can take care of yourself. That becomes available for you too, if you choose to take on self-leadership. What also becomes possible, and this is the part that is so exciting, is that you realize you didn't just do this for you. You did it for your kids too. You're modeling it for them too, because yes, they are watching. Not just what you teach them, in fact, sometimes not at all what you're teaching them per se, but how you're living, and that is teaching them the most important parts. They are watching whether you trust yourself. They're watching whether you make choices from fear. They're watching what it's like when a woman knows her own mind and acts from it, or what it looks like when she outsources that knowing to everyone around her. The most important curriculum in your home is not the books on the shelf or the schedule on the wall. You live in your life on purpose, aligned from the inside out. That is what self-leadership makes possible. Not a perfect homeschool, not a life free of doubts or hard decisions, but a life where you are genuinely in the driver's seat and your kids get to watch what that looks like every day. If you're hearing yourself in any of these things, or if there's a decision that you've been circling, or a deep inner knowing you've been ignoring, a permission you keep trying to get from someone else who does not have authority in your life, I want you to just sit with that for a moment, just to acknowledge it. You're not necessarily going to figure out what the right thing is right now, but just sit with it, acknowledge it. There is a gap between you knowing, you having authority in your life, and actually living from it. That's where your inner work lives, that gap. That gap does not get closed by overthinking and over-researching, my dear Enneagram 5 moms, or talking yourself into something. It closes through a different kind of work, a deep work, the kind that happens when someone helps you look honestly at the patterns you're carrying, where they came from, and what it would take to lay them down. That's the work that I do. I'd love to do it with you. I can be in your earbuds as you're walking the dog, or as you are walking the kids to the park. But there is no deeper work than you and me sitting together and deep diving on the old scripts that are dictating your life and making decisions for you. There are 2 ways to take a next step with me. The first is to book that free aligned homeschool reset session. It's a one-on-one conversation, just you and me. Hopefully just you and me. Sometimes it's also with the kids, as we all know. So we're going to sit together. We're going to look together at what's actually keeping you from trusting yourself and leading your homeschool life with confidence. It'll help you to get clear on where you are and what's possible. The link to book is in the show notes. The second way is to join me at the end of the month for the D-School Breakthrough Workshop. It's happening on the last Friday of the month at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. It's a live 2-hour session where we go deep on the school mindset patterns that are quietly running your homeschool. The comparison, the anxiety about gaps, the invisible measuring stick you're holding yourself to that was handed to you by the school system. You didn't even choose those things, and yet you're very familiar with them, and you're holding yourself to them. We're going to begin to dismantle that. So much of what we talked about today has roots in that schooled mindset. I don't know if it's really deschooling or it's even deinstitutionalizing, but the deschooling breakthrough is where we go after those roots. The link is also in the show notes, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks for being here today. It means a lot that you choose to spend this time on yourself and with me in your earbuds. I hope we got a lot of laundry done today. I want this podcast to be the moment that reminds you you matter in your homeschool life. Not just as the educator, the planner, the one who's holding all the things together, but as the whole person with needs and desires and a life worth nurturing. And every 1% shift you make will ripple outward into your children, your home, your community, your sense of self. You don't have to overhaul everything. You just have to take one honest step toward alignment. And that's what we're doing here together. If today's episode resonated, would you hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next? And if you know another homeschool mom who's quietly carrying too much, would you share this with her? It might be exactly what she needs. Until next time, tend to yourself, trust yourself, and lead your homeschool life aligned from the inside out.